Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to welcome to our program here at Sharjah TV. Getting close to Allah, getting close to your Lord, knowing who is your Lord. And we want to say something because there are many people out there who are indecisive. And a lot of that, of course, comes from confusion, and they're confused about many things that happen in their life. The first thing we want to talk about, the common thread between the prophets of Allah. And to simplify it, we know that Adam is the father of all creation, meaning human beings, the father of all human beings, regardless of what nation we come from, what ethnic group we come from. He's the father of all mankind. And then if we would say the closest father to us is Noah. There was flood. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed the people. Noah, Allah subhanahu the prophets, the scholars say more or less, and Allah says in the Quran more or less that Noah lived for 1,000 years minus 50, which is 900. He invited his people to the worship of Allah for 950 years. The scholars said he lived more than 1,000 years. As an example. For us today, this is unimaginable, but it's easy for Allah. The people failed to accept his message, and Allah destroyed the creation, except for some animals, which he was told to bring in pairs on a ship, and a few people who were believers. And what we are today are descendants of Noah. And of course, absolutely originally from the first creation, which was Adam. And then we have Ibrahim, who we say the father of the prophets who came later, alayhi salam. And Ibrahim traveled throughout the land, alayhi salam, inviting the people to the oneness of Allah and obeying the commandments of Allah. And Ibrahim alayhi salam wound up in Mecca. He is the one who built, and his son Ismail built the Kaaba. And the Jews are descendants from his son Ishaq, Isaac, say in English, and the Muslims from his son Ismail. So if we look at what we're seeing today, and then who comes later, and there are many prophets between, is Moses, who the Jews say that we are following the way of Moses. And after Moses came Jesus, and the Christians say that we are following the way of Jesus Christ. And then came after Jesus with no other prophet between him, Muhammad who brought Islam. But we say that all of those prophets were Muslims. Yes, they were people who submitted, who Allah first of all chose to lead people during their time to the belief in the oneness of Allah, God, and to worship him only. And it is important to understand something, because this is something that has been propagated ignorantly by people and purposely, that the Muslims worship a different God than Jesus worshiped, that Moses worshiped, as an example. And this is fictitious. There's only one God. They only called people to worship one God. They received their revelation from the same one and only God. And whatever terminology that people might use in their specific language to identify who is the one and only God may be different. In Arabic, we say Allah, as an example. But it means the one and only God, the same God of Jesus Christ, the same God of Moses, the same God of Ibrahim, the same God of Adam, who was created by Allah. So don't be confused in this. There are people who intentionally want to confuse people about this issue. And I'll leave it there. So don't be confused about that. And people want to say, well, we don't know about Allah. We don't know about what the Muslims are saying. Oh, the Muslims, this is an Arab religion. We need to understand something, because there are many people who are very ignorant in relationship to this. And I ask we have a lot of visitors who come here from all over the world. And I ask them a simple question, what religion are you following, and who is your prophet? And someone says, well, I'm a Jew and I'm following the doctrine of Moses. I said, well, okay, fine. Where was Moses? And they have to think about it and say, well, he was in Egypt and he crossed the Red Sea. Says, okay, fine. And where was Jesus? Say, well, Jesus was in present, what is called today, Palestine or Philistine. And he says, well, and he was known as what? He was known as Jesus of Nazareth. Nazareth still exists in Philistine today. And the people say he was born, the Christians say he was born in Bethlehem. In Arabic, it's Beit Lahm. Bethlehem still exists in Palestine. It didn't disappear. So there are many people who their geography is confused. They don't have a clue. So if we understand this, then the religions that people are following, the major people in the world today, actually originated in the Middle East. And we need to understand that. So when people say this is a foreign religion, that this is the religion of the Arabs, we don't know about this. This is something different. So you need to look at what you're following and its place of origin. And also, if the doctrine which you're following has been translated into your language, which is distinctly different from the languages of the prophets of Allah, we need to understand that dynamic, and you need to understand something very clearly. Is what you're following actually what was documented by the Prophet of Allah? Can it be confirmed? And it is important. Some people say, well, it doesn't matter. Well, I'm following this and it doesn't matter. This is what my forefathers believed and we believe it. I said, well, fine. When you go to a doctor, you have a very serious illness. Don't you want to know his credibility? Or will you just go and say, well, this doctor has a lot of, specifically, a lot of degrees in front of his name, and he has a lot of, degree. When he came in his office, there were all kinds of certifications on the wall, so he must be very special. When we know today, there have been many people who have been caught, fortunately by authorities, who are phonies all over the world. And there are people, if we just use doctors, there are people we found that actually operated on people, and they were phonies. So we know that we wouldn't do this. We wouldn't do this. So when we talk about our eternity, everlasting life, can we afford to take a chance? Can we throw the dice on this? Well, it doesn't matter. Whatever happens, happens. Can we afford to do that? Is that a wise decision? Or should we take the time out to make a comparative analysis? And when I say comparative analysis, I mean to study and find out. Yes, we can understand. I remember talking to my mom. My mom is 91 now. And she said, well, when we were growing up, it was older people who were teaching us religion. And a lot of those people, they couldn't even read. Okay, they were only teaching us what they had learned from other people. And those that could, their education was very limited in religion. And now I personally have family members who are doctors in theology, as an example. And there's a distinct difference in discussing this with my mother. There's a distinct difference between their capabilities and their knowledge and the people in the past. So we use this as, doesn't that make sense? So what you're following, isn't it important and significant that you follow that which is authentic? And in today's world, is there really any excuse? Depending upon where it is that you might live in the world. And wherever you live in the world, you should still want that which is authentic. You should, in relationship to what it is that you're doing in your life. Your life is dependent on it. And not this, you're hereafter. When we're talking about the belief in God and how we believe in Him and what we do, how we discipline ourselves, it is important and essential for us to understand that we are following to the letter, to the best of our ability, that what is decreed from the one and only God. Not something that a man or a group of men have decided themselves that, well, this is not good for our people, this is good for our people. So we will take these things and we'll follow these things and everything will be lovely. So we choose. Or, which is worse, maybe, Allah knows best, I can't say that, is what we're seeing today to be following what we used to call when I was young fads, and now they're calling it branding. Okay? That this is what is in vogue today. So we're following what is in vogue today. And this is what people want to do. And this is what people enjoy doing and what they like. And as a result of that, many people have become very wealthy, very famous, and so-called successful. So this becomes a criteria for us judging whether this is a good thing or not. So-and-so, he's become famous. She has become very rich. Is that a criteria? We need to ask ourselves that question. From the other side, we know that Allah gives people rope, meaning what? That people who think that they can disobey the commandments of Allah and thrive in that way, and in many instances verbalize it openly and publicly and internationally, the law, this gives them rope. He lets them continue on this path until their demise. And maybe before their demise, they begin to suffer the consequences of their actions without realizing that those deeds which you did, they've caught up to you. The law has not given you any more time. So we don't want to be those people. We don't want to be among the people who make excuses. Well, I really didn't know about Islam. The Muslims are branded as terrorists internationally, and look at those guys, what they did and what they're doing, and look at their women, how they dress, and so forth and so on. I don't want to be like them. And they speak a foreign language, and their habits and their culture is a different culture than my culture and how I live and how I've been taught. We need to ask ourselves a very simple question. Is this distinct from the people who disobeyed the prophets in the past? Or is it the same? The people, they disobeyed Noah, alayhi salam. The people, they disobeyed the prophet Lot. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah, who were homosexuals, they disobeyed him. Allah destroyed them. The people of Ad, which Allah mentions, the people of Ad and Thamud over and over again, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave these people, they were very powerful, very huge, very powerful people, where they actually made their houses out of stones, meaning out of other mountains themselves. And Allah, the Prophet Hud, his name was Hud, Allah destroyed these people. The people who the Christians and Jews today know very well of Moses, alayhi salam. The Pharaoh of Moses, the scholars say that the Pharaoh of Moses, Allah gave him a very long life without sickness. He lived for several hundred years. And he had a vast kingdom. But he had people worship him. And he continued in this path, even though Moses was a miracle in the sense that Moses, alayhi salam, grew up in the house of Pharaoh. Even when Pharaoh had sent his people out to kill all newborn babes. As an example, that in itself was a warning for him. But no, he continued in this deluded manner. And of course, he suffered the consequence of his actions along with his army. And Allah saved the children of Israel. But also, we need to understand something. All of the children of Israel didn't follow Moses alayhi salam across the Red Sea. Some of them hesitated. because they were not true believers. We need to understand that dynamic for people that don't know that part of the story. And the number that followed him was a small number that crossed the sea. And Allah opened the sea and made a path. But those who hesitated, they died with the people of Pharaoh because they were disbelievers. So we need to ask ourselves that dynamic today. Where do you stand? You need to understand this dynamic. Regardless if you call yourself an atheist, regardless if you say, well, you're doing your own thing, which a lot of people are doing, you're following this, you're following that, you need to understand something. Whatever you're following, I ask you one very simple question to ask yourself. Whatever you are following, when you die, what is going to be your condition? You need to know that. You don't need to be doubtful. Today it is easy to find out the answer. You can say, well, everybody just dies and you're going to just turn into bones and the bugs will eat you. Well, that's which is evident to the eye, possibly. But there are also accounts of people who have evidenced other things. And this is not fictitious because there's too much of it and it's historical. So why would we say it's fiction? People say what is fiction, what is comfortable for them in their present existence, to make them comfortable about what's going to happen to them after they die. Just to think, well, it's all over. I lived my life to the full. I did everything that I wanted to do. I was successful in that. And when I leave here, khalas, doesn't matter. No, this is not the case at all. So those who are listening, I'm warning you now, if you're one of those people who is following your own desires, take time out now, reflect, think ahead. What will be my condition when I die? I need to know, I need to make effort on it, I need to find out, I need to take the steps and prepare myself now because it is coming for each one of us. May Allah guide all of us to the path of righteousness, and for the believers, may He keep us on that path until the angel of death is sent to take our soul. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah TV on getting to know Allah, your Lord, your sustainer, your creator. And may all of you get this truth before the angel of death takes your soul. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.